She's been on Wicked.
As an A10 book cover, we know 5 different plots. Deal with the props on the show, the maintenance. It happens for a reason. I would not have ended up in the West End at the age of 24 if it wasn't for all of that happening. The automation will win. Get out the way. I will say to anybody, if I had not been put on this show, I would not be where I am now. Fear of letting people down, that is my biggest fear.
It shouldn't be this cutthroat world. We're making art.
Everyone in the industry is in it because they love it. Why would I want to do something I love if it's going to be in jeopardy of family? I can't keep doing this to myself. You only get one body. You need to protect it. I think this is now my body telling me to just stop.
Hello and welcome to Where Creatives Connect. If you've not been with us before, this is the podcast that brings creative folk from all over the world doing all sorts of things, whether they be involved in tech, dance, music, actors, playwrights, literally everything. I'll get them on, and it's my job to dive into the behind the scenes of what they do, their journey, their process, and bring you kind of their lives, really. I'm really excited today because I've got a wonderful human with me that's just come up from London, a very intense week by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
On a really, really small musical that you probably haven't heard of. She's been on Wicked. How you doing, Sarah? You all right?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you for making this massive journey up. Did you drive up or did you train?
Train.
Yeah.
Nice. Straight after work.
Oh, very good.
Managed a quick pint in the pub first.
Good. Oh, absolutely. Was it 4 shows in 3 days you've just done?
Yeah.
Talk us through. Was it Friday?
Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday.
And then train up?
And then train up.
Intense. And why was it so intense this week? Anything change?
Because so one of our DSM sadly injured herself, so someone had to step up and call the show for 4 shows straight, and that person just happened to be me.
Well done for taking one for the team. And right now we are in like heat wave territory.
Yes.
So I imagine it's pretty damn hot in that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All the fans are on. Everyone's walking around with like hand fans, like swirly things. Yeah, everything.
Excellent. If you were on the train yesterday and somebody came and chatted to you and they said, "What do you do for a living?" What do you tell them?
So I'd probably start out by saying I work in theatre. And then if they go from there, I ask like, "Oh, so what do you do in theatre?" Like, work backstage, because not a lot of people actually know what stage management means.
No. I'd say a lot of musicians and actors don't always know what stage management is.
Not necessarily, because there's so many different roles in stage management as well. So if it was something that I knew, like new theatre, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm an assistant stage manager, book cover," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." But someone that works a 9-to-5 job might have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So there's definitely build-ups to that. So I'd probably say work in theatre, work backstage, work in stage management, and then go to what I actually do.
If you were to explain to somebody that had no idea, what exactly do you do?
I run around backstage and have fun. No, I deal with the props on the show, the maintenance, the upkeep. If we need any more sources buying, then we're in charge of that. We also have our wing plots, so like we're in charge of a wing. So in total, as an A10 book cover, we know 5 different plots. So we've got stage right, stage left, the deck plot, which is the stage manager's plot, the double, which is stage right and the deck combined, and the book.
Wow.
And we can basically just get
flipped between
any of those. But sometimes we have fun with it. So sometimes it'll get to a point where you might need to take a prop from stage right to stage left, and we'll go, "Do you want to swap?" And we just like randomly swap. So sometimes we make it a bit fun. Like if we've had a really long week and like we need something to jazz it up a little bit, we can sometimes do that as well.
How long have you been on Wicked so far?
I've been there now 10 months, which feels insane because it doesn't feel like that long at all, but it has been 10 months.
Wow. And have you been in the same role throughout, or has it changed?
Yes, no, same role throughout. Yeah. No progression in that at all, but I'm quite happy with the jumping around the 5 different things, because you get an insight into what everything is. Like I still get to call the show, I still get to do all these different plots. You have your office shows as well, where you do a bit of maintenance and go and like chat to people you don't normally chat to and stuff. Like,
and I suppose around you, there's a lot of people changing. So I remember we spoke a couple of months back, and was there a whole cast change?
Yes. So this cast change, it was like a 70% cast change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very intense. We had the same Dillamond, we had the same Morrible. The Bok was stepping up, who was first cover, was now actual Bok. And like literally everyone else was new.
And how long do you get to rehearse that before it goes on?
It's like a 6-week rehearsal and then like 2-week tech, and then they're on.
That's pretty intense.
Maybe even less than that. It might have been 6 weeks in total. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Because then as ASM's like, we then go to the rehearsal room, do rehearsals, and then come back for the show.
The show that's
Yeah.
running. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're doubling up your day
Yeah.
for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty much. But the swings do that as well. The swings and the dance captains, like, they will come in to rehearsals and then they're like, right, you need to go to the theatre now. Like, this is your hour break to get there, and then they might be on that night. Like,
Are you rehearsing in the theatre?
No.
So how long do you actually get in the theatre before it's live?
Our job personally, we arrive at the theatre at 5:30, and then warm up is at 6. Open the house at 6:30. Shows up at 7:30.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's very quick. Like, a lot of shows, their stage management will be a bit earlier because their preset might be bigger or a bit more awkward. You can't really do it around the cast, but luckily we can do all of ours around the cast warming up. So it's actually quite rare for like us to be in at 5:30.
Yeah.
Because other shows you can't do your preset when the cast are on stage, but we can.
I'm with you.
So that makes it a lot nicer.
That's good. And
Yeah.
from the rehearsal room to getting the new cast on, do they get like a week in the actual theatre?
Yeah, so they basically have their tech in there, tech, dress, and then they're open.
That's it.
That's it.
Wow, that's a short amount of space to learn a physical space.
Yeah, because we give it as much as we can, like in rehearsals, like we do a markup and stuff. So we have the ground plan that's got everything on it. So, and we use like different coloured tapes to symbolize different parts of the set and stuff. So they get that, but it's not the same as actually being in the theatre and then realizing, oh, I need to run under the stage at this point.
Yeah,
it's mental. And then you got all your automation pieces moving as well, because we have a lot of that in the show. And sometimes we have to keep reminding them, like, the automation will win. Get out the way. Like, it will win. Like, don't hurt yourself. If you get in the way of that automation, it ain't stopping. So it was just a little reminders like that, just because obviously in the rehearsal room, it's like you haven't got any of that. So yes, you might be near something moving, but it's not actually there. So when you're on stage, you're like, oh, that's actually coming towards me right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to get out of the way. Like,
one thing that's been in my mind, this is take 3, by the way, as Wicked is known so well amongst lots of people, that was much cleaner.
Yeah.
Is that even if people haven't seen it in person, nearly everybody knows roughly what's going to happen because they've seen clips on like TikTok or just like everywhere.
Yeah.
So do you feel like a heightened amount of pressure because you can't kind of divert it in a different direction because everybody knows?
Yeah, everyone knows what they're in for.
Yeah.
Like when they come and see it and you're like, we have to deliver the show that everyone knows what they're coming to see almost. Like, I don't think there's one person that I know that's come to see the show that's like, I actually know nothing about it. Like, everyone knows Wicked.
And the words to it and everything.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, we watch people like on the MD monitor, like in the audience and stuff, and like, they're literally singing along.
The whole thing.
To the show. Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's lovely, but it's also like, okay, if I mess this up, then I'm going to have some unhappy people. But what's really nice though, is if stuff does go wrong, they love it. They absolutely love it. Audiences love it. So like, we have what's commonly known as a witch switch. So like, if one witch needs to go off for whatever reason and we need to throw an understudy on, we try and do it mid-show, so like seamlessly, we don't have to stop. So it's like one will exit and another will enter.
Is that if a witch gets ill?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot? Is it a witchy thing?
It's happened a couple of times since I've been there. But then you literally go on Twitter in the interval and everyone's like, there's a witch switch. Like, it just blows up. It is mental. Absolutely mental. But they love it. They absolutely love it.
I quite like that side of it. It's like little Easter eggs.
Yeah. And there's so many of those in the show as well. Like, I didn't realise a lot of things, like the tune of some things are quite related to The Wizard of Oz because of copyright and stuff, we can't actually use terms that are used in The Wizard of Oz. Like, for example, the word Tin Man is never used, Scarecrow is never used. It's all stuff associated with that character and stuff that's used.
Really?
Yes, like Yellow Brick Road, never used. Even though you can see a version of the Yellow Brick Road, it's never actually...
And that's all copyright?
I'm pretty sure that is all just because of copyright.
Gosh.
Yeah.
You're on the West End production.
Yeah.
Is there a touring production that's happening at the same time?
There is, yeah. They've just been in auditions, I think, because we've just had the drum kit back from what we presume was auditions. We were like, why do you need a drum kit? Okay, yeah, just take it. Yeah, that's going out. No, I think that goes out in November. Yeah, starring the lovely Laura Pick, who was actually Elphaba in town.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to come back a little bit later on in the podcast about how you got into this job and how we kind of arrived there. But we're going to go right back now to little you. And And this is probably a good time to mention how I know you. Hello, I am just editing this podcast from my lovely hotel room in New Zealand. If you're enjoying it so far and getting some value out of it, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe on YouTube, comment down below your favourite bits, follow it on Spotify, give it a star rating, share it, just engage in some way, because the more engagement it gets, the more eyes get to see it and the more people I can get on to share their wonderful stories with you at home. It takes 2 seconds. You know what to do. On with the podcast. So a few years ago, I was lucky enough to do some teaching at Knutsford Academy, or Knutsford
High school.
High School.
Was it high school at that point? No, Knutsford Multi-Academy Trust, wasn't it, at that point?
There you go.
That's the one.
Get the branding right. So I taught there for a couple of years, and you had just left.
Yeah.
I was getting there, but I had met you. Well, I'd met your mum.
Yeah.
And I'd met you when you come back to do some work on the productions, and all that kind of stuff. So can you talk us through what your experience was like growing up? Because Knutsford, to put it into context for people that don't know anything about it, is a really like artistically thriving school. It's got brilliant synergy between the dance and the drama and the music and the art department. It's like they all work really, really well together. What was your experience like there, and how's that kind of led you to what you're doing now?
So it definitely kick-started my absolute love and passion for theatre, any department of that. Like my family in general, like I started dancing from the age of 2 at Helen Bates in Knutsford, who is sadly isn't at school anymore. But my whole family performed, like my mum, my dad, my grandma, my great auntie, my nanny, my granddad, like everyone literally. I grew up in a family of performing people. And then coming to Knutsford just sort of elevated all of that, because I was also part of what was called Chaos at the time, is now Knutsford Musical Theatre Company. And one of the teachers at Knutsford, Helen Main, was involved with that, and my mum was involved with that. So I knew Helen before I went to Knutsford.
Cool.
And all that sort of stuff. And then she just sort of was like, come on, you can do this. I know there's a little performer in you somewhere. I was so shy and so like nervous at the beginning of it, but then definitely going through my time at Knutsford, that confidence began to grow, and I started to sort of realize I could maybe take this further than Knutsford. Then when I was in year 9, Lisa Scott was like, I want to make a dance company. It's called Fusion. So then I auditioned, got into that, did a couple of bits with that. And then when I went to the upper school, there was the upper school dance company called Ignition. And then I auditioned for that and got into that. So then the opportunities we had from that, we were dancing at the Regent's Theatre in Stoke at the dance festival they did every year. Then as I started getting older, from like year 11, year 12 and year 13, there were like other things we did as well as the Regent's Theatre stuff. And it all just sort of grew from there. I then got more confident in doing the productions, and then any productions I couldn't do because I was upper school, I couldn't do the lower school ones. I'd then help like directing, choreographing, working backstage on those. And it then just gave me the insight of everything to do with putting a production on. I didn't just see it from like the performer side. I saw it from what needed to be done backstage and how you like navigate moving set pieces around there. Because as you know, one side of the stage left is massive and the other side's tiny. So it's like navigating those elements as well. So it gave me an insight into everything.
That's such a good point, and I think that's something that Helen does really, really well. Is she keeps all of the jobs on the same pedestal? It's not it's not a hierarchy of like actors, dancers, musicians,
not
whatever.
at all.
It's just this like good
everyone
community.
Can get involved
totally
and do anything you want to do. And if you've not done something before, give it a go, and that's fine. It was a safe space for just trying out new things.
Yeah,
definitely.
Big style. How many productions do you think you did over this course of your high school?
Actually, in shows, I think I did about 8 or 9. And then I worked, jokes. I helped backstage on like probably about another 7 on top of that. And then you have like your dance festivals, you have your musical theatre reviews added onto that. Probably in total coming up to like 25-ish productions, probably of my whole time there.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Which is a lot. It took up a lot of my time, but I would not have had it any other way.
It's a really good conveyor belt of slightly different things because it's not just the same like
Mm.
production. There's like smaller things that happen
Yeah, you
as
had your
well.
smaller projects as well. So you had your musical theatre reviews, you had Bezic, you had your dance festivals. We then had the external dance stuff that we did with Ignition. We just did so much like random little stuff, and it kept you on your toes a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, would not change it for the world. Absolutely would not change it.
Were you doing any theatre and dance outside of school as well?
Yeah, so I was training with Helen Bates in ballet and tap. Then I was still doing external shows as well with what was then called now Knutsford Musical Theatre Company. I was still doing shows with them, which was with my sister and mum as well. So that was actually quite cute
Lovely.
to like share something with them. And when I got into sixth form, I had a discussion with Helen Main and was like, this is actually something I can consider myself doing a bit more. So she then got in contact with a lovely ex-student of hers called Michael Xavier, who ran a thing called West End Masterclass, which was every Sunday in London. You then have professional people from the industry come in and teach and stuff like that. It was literally just 3 hours. You did a dance class, a singing class, and an acting class. But the opportunities that came from that and the confidence I got from that as well, I believe definitely was a big stepping stone into where I went after Knutsford, 100%.
It could easily be the scariest thing you do, going all the way down to London, new people or nobody that you know. That was there
Yeah.
anybody?
No.
No. So that could be a really daunting thing. Why do you think you, from that potentially daunting experience, got confidence? What do you think it was?
Being around people that shared the same passion as I did, it definitely wasn't a community of competitive people. It wasn't that at all. Obviously, there's like a little bit. There always has to be like a little bit, but it wasn't like empowering the day. It was definitely just more of a come on, you can do it, like egging each other on. Like we'd all just help each other out with that. So it's obviously so daunting just going to London in general at that age.
Yeah, it's big.
Like it's huge. Like for the first term, my mum or dad always came with me because I was like, I don't want to go on the train on my own and navigate my way around the underground and stuff like that. And then after that, I was like, oh no, fine, I'm meeting this person when I get there. And then you get your friends there. And even some of them, like I still talk to now. I literally bumped into one of them who is now in Hamilton. I literally bumped into them on Saturday night. It was just insane to know that that's where we met. And now we're literally working at shows opposite each other.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I love that community aspect of it. It's so healthy.
Being around people that share the same passion as you and are just so, they just want you to do well is definitely what built my confidence up, because it was a space where you could make mistakes.
Competitiveness within the arts is such a bizarre thing because it's not a sport.
No.
You don't win or lose it. You're just trying to better yourself within the thing. But it's so easy to forget that when you're in an environment, particularly as a child, when everything's so intense.
Yeah.
That, if somebody's like got a big ego and they've really got to show off their thing,
Yeah.
because essentially you are showing yourself off as a performer, but you're either doing it for yourself or the art. And that's a hard thing to get your head around. So
Yeah.
that sounds like a very healthy environment.
It really was. And even like the tutors and the teachers that were there all the time and stuff, like everyone was just there for you. Like it is just about bringing people up, not knocking people down. Because this industry, you put yourself in, as a performer, you put yourself in such a vulnerable position. You're playing someone else in front of however many people. That's a scary position to be in, because then it's not like you can just jump back into being yourself and get into defensive mode if something goes wrong. Like you've got to stay as that person. And that's why, like when people come off stage sometimes if they're a bit rocky and stuff, I'm like, I could not, like now I'm like, I could not do what you do, because you put yourself in such a vulnerable position on that stage in front of all those people who knows how they're going to react to what you're doing. It's just being there for people and just picking them up however you can is really important.
I bet all of your experience within the performing side of it allows you to be better in your job now, and actually understanding and having empathy with what they're going through is
100%.
massive. When you started to do this West End Live,
yes,
and you were going back into school, did anybody notice like a change in you, or was there any?
So I actually kept it quiet going to West End Masterclass for quite a long time. I think I started like after Christmas, like the January, and West End Live's obviously in the summer. So I kept it quiet like that whole time. It's a long time to keep it quiet, especially when people are like, oh, do you want to go out on Saturday night? Like, do you want to come time for a sleepover? And I was like, I can't. I can come out for like a couple of hours, but I can't stay over. And questions just kept being asked. The amount of excuses I'd come up with was incredible. I mean, I could write a book on all of those excuses.
You should.
I should. If you want to make an excuse, here you go. But it got to a point, because we had to audition for West End Live. It wasn't just something that the whole school did. Like, you had to audition for it. And then when I found out I got in, I was like, definitely need to actually tell people about this now, because I knew for a fact that one of those people was coming to watch West End Live. And I was like, if she sees me up there and I haven't said anything, that's going to look a little bit eggy. I was like, yeah. So then I did tell them all. I was like, look, I've been going to this West End Masterclass school every Sunday. I am going to be performing at West End Live.
There you go.
There you go.
Do with it what you will.
Do with that what you will. And everyone was really supportive. Like, they were really nice about it. And I think some people are a bit like, oh, why didn't you tell us and stuff? And the honest answer to that is, it, in a selfish way, it was nice to do something for me. And because we, as a year group, it could have been competitive in a good way, but sometimes also in a bad way. Like, we just wanted it so much. Like, we all just wanted to do it, that sometimes it felt a bit like, I just felt like I couldn't really tell them I was doing it, because part of me was like, it's just nice to do something away from all of them and have my own space and my own space to grow with other people. But I felt like if I told them about it, one, would they hold it against me for going to London to do something? Would they be like, oh, I want to come too? And if they did, like, it obviously would have been fine. But, you know, it's just that growth by myself that I really wanted from that experience. And that is what I got.
It's so hard at any age, but particularly when you're younger, to break away from a group and then feel like this weird guilt about it.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're doing something to better yourself. It's not
Yeah.
like you're just given, I don't know, like free tickets to go and watch something.
No.
You didn't want to
Yeah.
invite them. It's like you're actually doing something to work on yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be slightly uncomfortable then to grow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that sounds like exactly
Yeah,
what you
that
did.
is exactly what it was. I needed that space away from that environment, like you say, to grow in myself as a person, but also as a performer, and expand my skills in that sense. And at that age, like you say, it's a very young age to do that. Like, I started going when I was 17, and when you go at 17 on your own to London, like, that's a lot to go through as like a young person. Like, considering how like shy and like I had like no confidence in myself that I could actually do this, to then have to do that. Just going to London, taking that step, was a confidence growth thing I had to go through as well.
Where do you think your younger years' lack of confidence came from?
I think it's because at Knutsford, you were around such big personalities and everyone was great. Like, we had a year group that people were genuinely brilliant. And you look at where some of those people are now, and like David being is he in Australia doing Tina Turner now? Like, some people, like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
When you're within like a bracket, you judge yourself on this weird race, like they're doing better, faster. But life is not that at all.
No.
Like we were talking about where everybody goes after.
Yeah.
It just goes outwards.
Yep.
It doesn't go that way.
No.
It just goes out.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it's so easy to forget that big personalities and big energies can make you smaller by default.
Yeah.
That's a really dangerous thing to kind of surround yourself with in life in general. But it's so important to take a moment and go, that's why I was that way.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to be around it in the future.
No.
But it's such a big thing.
It's huge. It's a huge thing, especially at that age when you just feel like, I'm never going to get out of this. Like, there's people who are going to be around me all the time and stuff. And it's like, you know what? You grow up and you separate a little bit, and then you with different groups of people, but then you have to deal with those encounters in a different way as well. So it's just a thing of growing up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, in that moment, you're like, this is my life. Like, I'm always going to feel small in this situation. But now I'm like,
it's nothing.
it's nothing.
No.
It's literally nothing. Like, I'm probably the loudest person in Wicked, not going to lie. Everyone can tell when I'm in.
Not even mic'd up.
Oh no, don't need that. Like, we call stuff in and I'm like, could you hear that? And they were like, yes.
Let's go down the dance route now. So firstly, Lisa Scott,
Yes.
Fusion Ignition. To give people an idea, I think Lisa's got this beautiful balance between treating young people like professionals in terms of the quantity and the intensity of work, and also not focusing on really commercially viable forms of dance,
Mm.
just stuff that is really beautiful, brilliant storytelling,
Yeah.
and it's really rare. It's
Yeah.
really rare. So she does an amazing job with that. Talk to us now about being involved in Ignition and then where you went to post school.
I honestly believe that from Ignition to where I am now is sort of where my journey is, definitely, because it started with Ignition. We did a piece for the British Red Cross. They had like a little competition going on, and we did a piece for them. Throughout rehearsals for it, my knee was starting to just niggle, a little bit uncomfortable. I'd be like, oh, like what's going on there? Is it my technique and stuff? So I'd look at it, I'd like dance in the mirror and just check alignment and stuff. And I was like, no, like that all seems like I've always done it. Like it all seems absolutely fine. It came to performing it. There was a bit where I had to do this jump into like lying on the floor and my knee just completely went. I then got off stage and there was literally a first aider there carrying me up the stairs because I was just hobbling my way through it. So then I started going to like physio a little bit and it was fine. Just sort of kept on top of it as much as I could really. And then when it came to year 13, it was like my final performance with Ignition. It was very emotional anyway. And there was a moment I was downstage left. I had to run off, run around the back, come on downstage right for this jumping sequence. And I had about 15 seconds to run around in. Like everyone just had to get out of the way because I was the only one that had to run around at this point. And as I was running round, my knee just buckled. In my head as well, thinking choreographically for some reason, I really should have been thinking about my knee, but I was like, it's going to look really rubbish if I don't go on right now. I was like, this isn't going to look good. So I need to go on. I got to the wing just in time for me to go on. And I literally said to another dancer, I went, my knee's just gone. And then I went straight on stage and started jumping on it for the rest of the number. And then I didn't leave the stage after that. I was on
So
for
you
the
got
whole
through the
thing.
dance?
I got through the whole thing.
Trooper.
Got through the whole thing. Obviously with the emotion of it being my last dance with Ignition. And then that happened. I was just a mess. So then after that, again, it was like ice and all that sort of stuff. Keep having physio on it. But then I found out I got into London Studio Centre on a foundation course. It just unlocked a whole other segment of, I'm not going to say injuries because it's not an injury, because we then found out it's conditions I've had from birth, which we just never knew about.
Hadn't been picked up?
No,
No.
not at all. It wasn't until I was 16 that things started to escalate with it. If I didn't dance, I probably would have no idea that I had these conditions
And
in
what
the first
other
place.
conditions you got?
So in my knee, I have got what's called fat pad impingement, which is basically if your knee, like when you bend your leg so much, like if you're doing a grand plie, for example, the bones separate. And then when I straighten up again, the soft tissue gets caught in the bones.
Oh,
So
sounds awful.
it's not ideal, especially when you're trying to be a dancer. It's definitely not ideal. Not gonna lie. And then in my hips, we then found out that I've got a hip girdle imbalance. So my hips are not very useful for the podcast, but they're that way and that way. Don't know how you describe that.
Forward and up.
Forward and
If
up.
you're not watching, also you should be watching if you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, so they're like forward and up that way. So I'm just lopsided.
Is that something you can fix,
Yeah.
like Chiron?
Yes. So this is where I adore my physio to absolute pieces, because when I was at LSE, one of my jazz teachers, Valentina, absolutely adore her. She put me in contact with her physio because she used to be part of a dance company and it used to be the physio of that dance company. So she put me in touch with her, went to her, and straight away she just looked at me and went, yes and yes. And she was just like, I know exactly what's going on here. So she was brilliant.
Wizards.
Yeah, absolutely wizard. So then it got like a few weeks into going to her for physio, and she was just like, you know what, let's just go for an MRI scan just to triple check everything. They basically came back and were like, yeah, there's nothing that you need an operation for necessarily. They're like, there is an opportunity, like if you want that, we can go down that route, but the recovery time is going to be so long from that, because they'd have to do both knees at that point. And I was like, I'm 18. I don't want a knee operation at 18. If I can get through it with physio and working out and strengthening around it, then I would prefer to do that.
Mm-hmm. What then happened after?
So I found all of this out probably around Christmas time of my foundation course. I just kept working through it, to be honest, for the whole of that year. Like my physio, like she was taping up my knees. I had tape on my knees. I had supports. I had ice with me, all that sort of thing. And I just got through
Mm.
what I could. Then I started my first year there. I was like, yep, this is where I want to go. I want to stay here. I absolutely adored it at LSE. I then started my first year, and about 3 weeks in, my knee went. It got to a point where I literally couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. My knees were so inflamed. It was just painful to even literally swing your legs out of bed and stand up. It was so painful. Ultimately, I just remember waking up one Saturday morning and just being like, I can't keep doing this to myself, because I loved dance so much. It was my absolute passion. It's what I'd done since the age of 2. It's what my great auntie used to do as a career. My grandma did, my mum did, my sister danced. Like, it was just something I'd always known. And I just remember being like, I think this is now my body telling me to just stop and just protect my body more than anything. Because you only get one body, you need to protect it. And I just remember phoning my mum and dad on FaceTime. They were like, are you sure this is what you want to do? But then when I explained it a bit more, they were so supportive. They were just like, if you feel like you can't do it anymore, then we will support you through that. We will help you out. And then in that conversation, it was my dad that I remember him so well saying, if you leave performing, I could still see you in a theatre with a headset on, working backstage and stuff. And then that was it. Seed was planted.
Mm.
And if it wasn't for my dad saying that, who knows if I'd be doing what I'm doing now.
That was just before Christmas of that first
Of my first year.
year.
Yeah.
Then was it Christmas time you finally left there?
Yes. Yeah. So I then went and spoke to the administration office, and we basically agreed that after that first term, I then wouldn't come back for term 2 and 3. So I left at Christmas.
How are you feeling mentally at that point?
I was distraught. I was broken. At that point, I felt like there's nothing else I can do. Performing is all I'd ever known at that point. I was like, I don't have anything else. Like, all my A-levels were all performing based. It was all dance, drama, and musical theatre. Like, it's all I'd ever done. And my brain was just like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to live? And these thoughts and stuff do come in, but having the supportive family I have got is definitely what got me through all of those thoughts. I'd basically given up everything I'd been working on for 19 years of my life, which is insane when you think of it like that.
And the extra thing that not everybody feels is that when it's an art, when it's any form of communication, music, theatre, performing, it's part of you and your identity and who you are. It's not just a job that you've done for 19 years that you've just grinded through and you just feel like, oh, that's a big part of what I was. It's an expression of yourself.
Yeah.
And that it's like a part of you dying in a quite extreme way.
Yeah. Like you say, that element of me was then just lost. It took me so long to like find a way of expressing myself, which ended up through journaling. I used to just keep a journal and just like write everything out, taking pictures, taking videos, whacking it in, writing stuff on how I feel. I still do it now. Like everything now, I still whack it in a journal and stuff. And if there's a journal where I'm like, oh, that was a bit of a rubbish year, like it literally, like even a few months ago, I found a load of journals and I was like, I'm actually ready to get rid of that now, because that was such like a dark point in my life. I was like,
move on,
get it gone.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to move on from all that now.
Was journaling an active choice, or did you just like stumble upon, you found yourself writing?
Yeah, I just found myself writing. I used to find myself just like, if I needed to have like a difficult conversation with someone, I just write it out on my phone.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of built from that. Like in a moment, I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling a bit like this. And I was like, why not just get like a book and actually just write it out? And actually writing it makes a difference rather than typing it. Because everything's so based around technology nowadays. Like, it's nice to detach yourself from that.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
100%. Like, I've got a journal now where I've split it into like 3 sections. I've split it into like my work journey, my personal journey, and my physical journey.
I also find when you have to write things down, I've started to try and write letters to people, particularly because I'm moving far away, like kind of do those sorts of things.
Yes.
When you have to write with pen and paper, you slow it down because it's much quicker to type.
Yeah.
Text, sorry, if you're not watching. But when you have to write it out, it takes a wee while. So you have to actually really think about everything in that slightly slowed down time. It's
And
cool.
I don't know if you're the same as me. Like, if I mess something up on a page, I have to start again.
Yeah, rip it out.
Start it again. I can't deal with like scribbles on the page and stuff. But that makes you think even more about what you're writing.
Oh, absolutely.
As well.
You take way more care with it.
Don't just erase it. It's like,
Yeah.
I've got to write it all out.
Delete,
again.
shake, and undo. Yeah, absolutely.
Do it all over again.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
Yeah.
I totally feel you. And actually, one of my things is I want to improve my handwriting because I hate it so much. That is actually a thing. I like that. That's really cool. Hello again. If you are like Sarah and I who like to journal, jot things down as to-do lists, write letters to people, then one product that will really help you out are notebooks like these. These are my lovely Dingbats Notebooks, and you can get some money off with my code. I use this one as my guest book for creatives to forward questions to future creatives, and then I've got a couple of these smaller ones that are awesome to throw in your bag and collect my thoughts and plan as I move around the world. If you want 10% off, you can use my code Jamie10 at checkout. Dingbats Notebooks, go and check them out. So you left at the Christmas time. You then had the rest of the academic year, so 2 more terms. What did you do during that time?
I still wanted to be in theatre in some way, shape or form, so I actually applied to work front of house.
Cool.
At some West End theatres, and I got a job at the Novello Theatre, which is where Mamma Mia is on. I think I was there for like 5 months, and then I ended up going to Wyndham's Theatre, which is where Oklahoma is on at the moment, and I did that the whole time. I even started doing that when I then got into Mountview, which is where I applied for to do theatre production arts in stage management, because I applied for that in that 2 terms, and then I started in Mountview the following September.
1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
3-year course.
3-year course?
Yeah, got onto the degree. Honestly, it was absolutely hilarious. They must have been thinking in my interview, what is this person? Because they asked for a portfolio. I basically messaged Ray Fung, Helen Main, Chris Lee, all that lot at Knutsford, and was like, have you got any pictures of the process of sets that we have had from shows that I have done with you guys? And they just sent through so much stuff, and I printed them off, put it on an A3 card, and wrote what I did on the show. That was my portfolio.
It worked.
It worked. I was just like, I just remember going into my interview with them and just being like, I'm so sorry, but
were you honest with the whole?
I was so honest. I was so honest with everything. I was like, there's no, because one thing I've definitely learned, and from having to like build my own teams as well, don't lie. There is no point. This industry is too small to lie. Like, just don't do it.
Also, anybody that tries to keep up a lie, you can see them just burning their energy and they're like withering away. How are you keeping that up?
Exactly. So I was completely honest with them about everything. And the questions they were asking me were just really nice. They were like, oh, but if you were in this situation, like, what would you do? And I just think of stuff at the top of my head and stuff. Some of it is just like, it is just common sense. And I think as long as they saw that, they were like, okay, we can actually
work with you
on this and stuff. And then I got an email like a week later being like, you got 1 out of 12 places.
Boom!
On this course. And I was like, great, there we go.
September.
See you in September. And then Life of Stage Management took off from there.
Fantastic. What was the first gig that you landed? Were you still at Mountview? Was it post Mountview?
I was. So how Mountview worked was, in your first year, your first term was basically doing a bit of everything. You did some stage management, you did some lighting, some sound. Second term, you went into like your specific departments and learned like the first role you were going to learn. So in stage management, we learned the assistant stage manager first. And then in the third term, you went and did a show. They either put you on a show that was being done at Mountview or an external one they'd got in contact with. And I will say to anybody, if I had not been put on this show, I would not be where I am now. Like, it just opened up so many contacts. I was one of the few that got sent to an external show. I got sent to Wilton's Music Hall, which is stunning if you've not been. And it was a all-male production of The Pirates of Penzance done by Sasha Reagan. And Sasha Reagan's thing that she is known for is doing all-male productions of Gilbert and Sullivan shows. They are phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. Like, they don't change the key or anything. Like, they are all still singing.
Right up there.
Yeah. Like,
impressive.
Very impressive. So I ended up doing that. But then I got in contact with, like, the lighting guy that was there called Ben Bull. And he he then kept doing Sasha's stuff as well. So that was a contact made, and she kept asking me back to do other stuff she was doing because she owns the Union Theatre in London as well, which is a lovely fringe theatre. It's absolutely gorgeous. So then I ended up doing Whistle Down the Wind for her. I ended up just doing like some little concerts and stuff. But then through doing Pirates, there's a guy that was in it called Tom Duern, and he does the Roles Will Never Play concerts that are on in London, and they're very, very popular. And he messaged me being like, can you come and stage manage me, like this show for me at the Apollo? So I was like,
why, yes, I can.
yes, I can. I absolutely can. But then Pirates, in the midst of COVID and stuff, like ended up doing 2 shows at the Palace Theatre where Harry Potter's on. So then I went and did that, and I was like, CV was like being built from this one show that I did in my first year. Incredible. Through Sasha and stuff.
And so that was happening throughout your second and third year, all of this building?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. By the time I left Mountview, I already had 4 external credits on my CV.
It seems to be that there's a couple of moments in your career so far, from West End Live and having this external show.
Yeah.
It's the external things to the core that seems to be the maker, or not the breaker, the maker within your career. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's mad. So there was one point when I was in my third year after the whole COVID scenario, I was doing 4 shows at once. A show in Mountview as stage manager. I was then helping out another show in Mountview with like a few bits. It was then Pirates and the Roles Will Never Play alongside that as well. It was intense, but again, it was one of those moments I was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
That's very, very
cool. This is pretty cool.
That brings me nicely on to ask you about lifestyle and well-being within lifestyle. Every creative person, not just on this podcast, but that I speak to, whether they be musicians, touring or recording artists or whatever they're doing, the conventional lifestyle that people can live through 9 to 5s is just abolished. Particularly in the last 10 months on Wicked.
Yep.
What is your typical week looking like, and how do you balance that to make sure your head is okay?
I'm going to be honest, I'm still figuring out how to balance a lot of it.
We all are, by the way.
Everyone is. Yeah. It's what you do as an adult, innit?
Apparently.
And I'm an adult. It makes me feel sick. So day to day, if it's a 1 show day, we're very lucky. We don't. If you've got nothing else on, if you're just in for show call, you don't have to be in the building until 5:30. So I don't leave home until 4:30. So you basically got like that whole bit of the day to do what you need to do. So whether that be cleaning, washing, going to the gym, food shop, making food, because that's a big thing with our industry is your dinner is a microwave meal. Like there's no other way you can do it. So I've definitely got into a thing now of making sure I have my meals prepped so that I know that I'm not just going to go to M&S and get
the quickest thing
I can.
Won't be the healthiest thing.
No, and it doesn't keep your brain active enough. I've definitely realised that you need that proper meal, especially when you call in the show. Yeah, especially
you can't let that ball drop.
No. If you do, it's game over. But then if it's a double show day, we're in at 12:30, so then obviously you leave at 11:30, you've got like that tiny bit of the morning. But your eating schedule is the main thing that's changed in our industry when you're doing the times that we're doing. That is something that's massively changed, because then like if we have the morning, we are sleeping, because when we get home, I don't get home till like 11:30, sometimes even later than that. By which point I'm not ready to go straight to bed. I need time to like chill out.
You're gonna be wired. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So I find that I don't normally get to sleep till like 1:30-ish. So then if I want to get like my full 8 hours or whatever, that's like 9 o'clock. I tend to push it to like 10:30. That tends to be my get up time. By which point I'm like, then you don't want to eat when you get up straight away. So by the time 9 to 5 people will be having their lunch, I'll be having breakfast, and then my lunch would be before the show, and then my dinner would be when I get home.
It's all out of kilter.
It's all out. Yeah, it's all very different.
And also, somebody explained this the other day. They said, well, if you did a 9 to 5 and say you were finishing at 11, or like you're getting out at 11ish, and you're going to bed at 1, like that's pretty good, because what that would be like is a 9 to 5, finishing at 5 and being in bed at 7. That hasn't happened for anybody
No.
because your brain isn't ready for that.
No.
So really, same when I finish gigs and things like that, I don't really want to be asleep until like 2:30 or 3. That's not just me deciding, that's just how it feels
your brain
inside.
works.
Yeah. It's hard.
It is hard, especially then when, like, with cast change and stuff, you're in rehearsals or you're in tech at 9 a.m.
Yeah. So
you won't get home until
burning that candle.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. But those few weeks, like, we're all going through the same thing. Like, eating and sleep is the biggest change in what I'm doing right now. Definitely.
Yo, just a quick one from me. I'm currently travelling across New Zealand, and one thing that I bring with me every single day to keep myself safe is my NordVPN. And you too can stay safe by following my link in the description below. If you're not too sure what a VPN is, a VPN essentially allows you to be James Bond online. Stay undercover and stay safe. There are literally millions of ways for people to steal your details online and use them for their own benefit, and we don't want that. If you use my link, not only does it massively help out the podcast, but it gives you up to 68% off a 2-year subscription with 3 months extra free. Stay safe online, use NordVPN, on with the podcast. When you're in the bubble of working and you've got your company and you've got your people that you work alongside, it's not too bad because you've got friends that are doing similar hours. Have you found, particularly as you started to do shows outside of Mountview and then post Mountview, that's had any impact on groups of friends that might not be within the same line of work or relationships of any kind, like family, friends, partners, whatever?
Keeping up with family has been really difficult recently. Like, it was literally last summer. Yeah, last summer. I was working at Kilworth House, luckily, for the second year. They asked me to come back, which was brilliant because it's where I did my first, like, major contract outside of Mountview. They were doing Carousel and Half a Sixpence, and I was going to be DSM for both of those shows. So I just left Footloose. I just finished tour. I'd finished that on the Sunday, and then I was in rehearsals on the Monday. So that's straight. Like, even on tour, like, you're here, there, and everywhere. Like, keeping up with family and friends is really, really difficult doing that anyway. But then when I had to switch from then doing evenings to days, I was like, okay, brain needs to flip a little bit. So then I did rehearsals for a bit, but then I had the evenings to then talk to my family and stuff. And then it got to going to Kilworth. And Kilworth was a very specific venue in how things work because it's outside. So in tech, what would usually happen with, like, a starting up show is you'd have plotting sessions in the day, maybe before cast arrive, and then you'd do a bit of tech, and then everyone would go home at like 10:30. At Kilworth, because you're outside, you need the dark. Window for doing that is all very limited. So then I'd be in tech at like 11 a.m. until 2 a.m. and then go home. But then, because I was the only person that needed to stay for that plotting session, the rest of my stage management team would be in earlier and stuff. But because of how that window was, like, I then wasn't waking up until literally an hour before I needed to be in venue because I just finished at 2 a.m, by which point I wasn't getting to sleep till like 4 a.m, sort of thing.
And probably not really switching off and getting deep sleep at all.
At all.
Probably.
No.
Do you get extra pay, like overnight pay or anything?
I didn't on that one, but they had to make sure I got my 11-hour break.
Yeah.
Because that's like
standard.
Like, so my company manager was literally like, you will not be seen in this venue until this time, because me being me, I would have probably just gone in when I woke
up. It's fine.
Yeah. He was like, no, you need to stay at home, you need to chill and stuff like that. So then I did that, then opened that show, and by that point I felt so guilty because it was my mum's birthday, but in the whirlwind of everything I completely forgot, and I just remember crying my eyes out on her birthday. I was like, oh my God, it's my mum's birthday and I completely forgot. I haven't sent a card, I haven't sent anything. And I just rang her and she was like, Sarah, it's fine. Like, you've literally been awake till like 5 a.m. all of these mornings.
So lovely.
It's all good. But it's that element. It's just like the reminders I have on my phone now to be like, this birthday's coming up.
Yeah.
Like literally weeks in advance.
I have to too.
My saviour is Moonpig. I love Moonpig. Like, it saves my ass. I love it. But she was so nice about it, and like so was everyone. And then people come to see the shows and they're like, yeah, we can see the work that's been put into it and stuff. But when it comes to like friends and stuff, it's so difficult to meet up with them. But it's just, you have to do it at those awkward times, because if they're working 9 to 5 and stuff, it's very rare that I will have an evening off.
Yeah.
Apart from a Sunday, because we only have a matinee on a Sunday, which is bliss. But if you have a float, that's when I'm like, I have a float, who's free? Because there's literally no other time to meet people.
Do it.
Yeah.
Does that worry you at all going forward into more adult life as we get older at all?
It is definitely a concern, but what is so brilliant about Wicked that Wicked has shown me is that it is still possible to work in this industry, because we do have our DSMs who have a job share, which is incredible. Like, it's very rare for shows to do that. So we have someone that works the first half of the week and someone that works the second half of the week. And it's so nice that theatre, and I hope our industry, I don't know enough about it in like other elements of film and stuff, but they're a lot more open, especially to women if they have kids and stuff like that, still being able to do their job.
Yeah.
That is really starting to come into play a lot in our industry, which is a very promising thing to be thinking about. But yeah, it is, like, people tend to say in our industry, like, you can't really date people not in the industry, but it's just because of the hours we do and the lifestyle we have and stuff. It's very different. Like, we are the entertainment people come to after work.
Yep.
But we're like, no, this is our work, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It is difficult, and it is something that plays on your mind and stuff. But I know that the industry is moving
in a positive
in
way.
a positive way. Like, we've just had our new equity thing come through, being like they're going to test out a 5-day rehearsal week. So when you're in cast change and stuff, instead of being 6-day rehearsals, it's potentially going to be 5.
So you have an actual
So you get the
weekend.
Saturday and Sunday.
What?
I mean, if, like, for example, on Wicked, we'd probably still be working the Saturday, Sunday, but at least it's not rehearsals and the show.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So that balance is starting, very early stages, but it's starting to be implemented into our lifestyle, which is good.
It's really good to hear.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, that was on the podcast not too long ago, talked about the same thing when she was filming. It was either Black Mirror or Hannah. I can't remember which one it was. And they talked about one of the leads having their daughter on set with them the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just so important, because it shouldn't be this like crazy cutthroat world. We're making art.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
And you'll find that everyone in the industry is in it because they love it.
Yeah.
So why would I want to do something I love if it's going to be in jeopardy of family and,
And a healthy life.
Yeah.
All of those things.
And I know some people that have now left the industry because they just can't cope with it. And that is so devastating, because they're such talented people, but they're like, I can't balance this. Like, some companies are still very closed off to actually being open to that element. And it's just really sad. But hopefully with this new agreement,
fingers crossed,
we're moving forward.
Do it.
Yeah.
Now we're nearly at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
This is my lovely guest book. Yeah. And if you want 10% off, you can put Jamie 10 at checkout and give me like 4p. It'll be great.
Every little helps.
It really does. So each person that comes on, I take a Polaroid with that camera right there, and they write a question to a future creative person.
Okay.
I've chosen one for you. I don't always choose ahead of time, but I was looking through this morning, and this kind of fits in nicely with your journey so far. And you're also somebody that's quite courageous to change your path. I mean, you almost had to. Well, no, you didn't necessarily have to.
I didn't necessarily have to, but everyone that knows me will tell you I am such a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. If I didn't have that knee and hip issues when I did, I wouldn't have then worked for like front of house. I then wouldn't have met my best friends from there. I then wouldn't have applied to Mountview. And if I didn't go to Mountview, I wouldn't have met Sasha. I wouldn't. And it all just like, that is just how I view everything. I'd rather view it like that rather than being like, oh, I couldn't do what I wanted to do originally and be miserable about it. I'm like, no, it happens for a reason. I would not have ended up in the West End at the age of 24 if it wasn't for all of that happening previously.
I don't think we mentioned that. You're only 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, this question is exactly to do with that. This is from Alan Henry, and Alan is a physical performer. He does stunts, and he's done loads of things, but he was the bear in Cocaine Bear, in the suit and all that stuff.
Cool.
So he's written a few different things, but one of them is, if you weren't doing this creative practice, what other career would you be doing, creative or otherwise?
This one's actually quite easy because when I was dancing, I loved choreographing. So I definitely would have gone down the choreography route. Choreography and teaching, I think.
Cool.
Definitely. Teaching dance.
I'm going to throw you one more as well.
Okay.
This is from Jay Swinnerton, who is a brilliant artist, drag artist as well. They have written, what is your biggest fear?
Fear of letting people down. That is my biggest fear. Definitely letting people down. Because then with a show like Wicked, like we spoke about at the beginning, like everyone knows it. I'm like, if something doesn't happen, I'm like, oh my God, have I let someone down? That's like, this could be their one and only chance to come and see this show. They might have saved up all their money to come and see it.
Yeah.
They could have come from wherever across
Might
the
be
world.
only theatre thing or
Yeah.
here or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, the fear of letting people down, 100%.
One thing I haven't asked you yet is, how did you land Wicked? How did that all come about?
I was at Kilworth doing tech or something. We're on a break, and I literally just saw a job advert come through, and I was like, you know what? Sack it. Let's just try. And the dance captain that was in Carousel was the dance captain on Wicked. He'd literally just come from there. So then I got an interview. Great. And in the interview, we ended up talking about this person. And then I told a really funny story about her because she absolutely cracks me up. I'll never forget it. We had our first cut show because of COVID, and someone had got caught COVID. And she brought me the cut show, and she'd written it on the back of a cereal box. And I was just like, great. Oh, really? Okay, this is happening. This is the level we've got to. Good. And I told that story in my interview, and they were just like, that is her down to a T. Absolutely her down to a T. And apparently they then actually got in contact with her, and she gave me a reference.
Yeah, cool.
And rest is history. I then got a phone call that weekend and was like, do you want to come work at Wicked? And I was like, yes, I do. Thanks.
Yes, please.
Cheers. Thanks for that.
Where do I sign?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
That's so cool. I've just remembered we had a mutual connection just after lockdown or in lockdown. Was Will Arundel on Carousel?
He was on the Beggars Opera that I did in Barnstaple. Yeah.
I want to tell this story now really quickly. Right? This is wild. Did I message you the story?
Yeah, because I put a picture of a question that he'd asked me, something about Buzz Lightyear or something, and then you responded being like, is that Will? I was like, oh, how do you two know each other? Yeah. Like, what? Right,
this is going in because it's a story and a half. I knew Will from first year at the RNCM. He did, I think, a full year there, and then he went... did he go to Mountview? No, he went to... Oh, he went to where Ashley... He went to Guildford. That's
Guildford, yeah.
Right, so he went to Guildford, and we used to do a band together called... I want to say it was Get Swinging, Keep Swinging, something about swinging. Can't remember. But that was great fun. And we stayed in touch a little bit over the years. I've not seen him in ages, but we've had lots of mutual people, including Ashley, who was on this podcast, has worked with him. Anyway, in lockdown, I was doing this project called the Daily Make Challenge, where I was writing music every single day. And it was either June or July. I wanted to do 30 collaborations with different people in 30 days. So I messaged a bunch of people, and they would send me different bits of music, and I would like reharmonize it or do whatever. And it was a strange part of lockdown where I've got to be careful how I say this, but there was there was two things going on. There was a very unusual person living in the same flat as me and my partner at the time, and so I was staying up throughout the night just to make sure that this slightly unusual person was safe.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Cool. And anyway, so I had my headphones on, I was in the lounge, and I was mixing. Will had written a song, and I was going to reharmonize it, and I heard this massive crash, this like big smash on the thing. I was like, that sounds really weird. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, why would Will put this in the track? This sounds awful, mate. What are you doing? And then I looked out the window, and I went onto the balcony, and two people had thrown bricks through the window of a bathroom store, and they were breaking in. And I just called the police straight away. And heart was pounding. It was honestly like 2 a.m. and they were smashed. Also, it was when nobody was really going out. So it was probably June or something like that. And they said, should we have the sirens on? I was like, no, because they will run the doorway. And so they whizzed around the corner. They overshot it. And I watched I don't know if I should say this, but I watched the police car hit the guy. Flew. Oh my Lord. It was awful.
Like a film.
It was like a film.
Yeah.
And then I was up, honestly, the whole night with the police people writing statements and stuff like that. It didn't help us. I can't say this, but actually, but anyway, I didn't finish Will's track that night, and
Yeah.
I honestly, sorry, Will, it was a beautiful piece, but it was like it's opening trauma.
Yeah.
Like I can't go
Like,
back
that's
to it.
it.
It's on a hard drive on that desk right now. I will open it one day, I promise. It was 3 years ago, nearly exactly actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, I realised I hadn't really told you, Will, why that happened.
Okay.
And there you go.
There you go.
There you go, mate.
Yeah.
Cheers. That's a pretty bizarre way to end this podcast, but it's been lovely to see you, because I don't think I've seen you in like 4 or 5 years. It was
Yeah.
definitely pre-pandemic for sure.
Pre-pandemic.
Yeah, it must have been.
Do you Little Mermaid?
How's the mermaid? No, no. Did I do the Little Mermaid?
At school?
Did
you? Oh.
Oh yes, yeah. It might have been.
Then I think that was the last time I saw you.
I think that was 2019.
Shut up.
Yeah,
That's disgusting.
and as I found out, it's 2023. So that was a while ago. That was 4 years ago.
Oh my lord,
There we
that's
go.
disgusting.
Well, hopefully it won't be 4 more years. Before I see
No,
you again.
hopefully not. Well, you're moving.
Yes, oh yeah, this isn't going to help anything. Maybe it will be. Maybe it will.
Maybe it will.
But thank you so much for making your way up here. And are you going straight back down to London for another?
Tomorrow.
Great. Straight into shows?
Straight into shows, and then I'm doing a Pride gig on Sunday in a church. If anyone's in London, I do gigs at churches sometimes.
Sick. Amazing.
Funny place to have a Pride gig.
Yeah,
but
it
here we
is.
are.
I like the juxtaposition.
Oh yeah.
Amen. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you, and also best of luck with everything moving forward. We'll stay in touch.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what you go on to next. Wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing, remember to create with people, connect with people, but most importantly, be exactly you. Until the next time, peace.